Have you ever felt like you're doing everything you're supposed to do for your health, but you still feel stuck? You follow the rules, you listen to the experts, and yet your body keeps sending you signals that something's wrong. For years, I was in that exact position, overweight, sick, and exhausted, despite following all the conventional wisdom. I was so caught up in what I was told to do that I lost touch with what my body was actually telling me to do. Today, we're going to dive into why this happens, as well as the idea of how we've become a medication nation, and how an incredible psychological phenomenon called authority bias keeps us trapped in a cycle of failed treatments. It's time to start thinking for yourself and listening to what your body's trying to tell you. We'll get into all of that and some more right here on the Carnivore Science Channel. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Liz. I'm a medical technologist and pharmaceutical chemist with over 30 years of experience in the medical and pharmaceutical industry. I'm also a carnivore. I have been for 3 years now. It cured this giant pile of hot mess. And got rid of all of these. Before we dive into today's incredibly important and frankly paradigm-shifting topic, I want to make something clear up front. I am not a physician, and nothing in this video should be construed as individual medical advice. My intention here is not to tell you what you should do specifically, but rather to share information, provoke some thought, and empower you to critically assess your own health journey. My goal is to get you thinking, not to give out marching orders. Today, I want to talk about something that I believe is silently yet profoundly impacting the health of millions, myself included for many years, and that is our unquestioning deference to authority. Have you ever wondered why, despite trying everything your doctor recommends, you're still feeling sick, gaining weight, or needing more and more medications? What if the very system that's designed to help us is more often than not keeping us sick? And what if the answer to true health lies in reclaiming the long-lost art of critical thinking and listening to our bodies, even when it flies in the face of conventional wisdom? Authority bias. In its simplest terms, authority bias is our tendency to attribute greater accuracy to the opinion of an authority figure, whether perceived or actual, and to be more influenced by that opinion. After all, we're wired to respect authority. From a young age, we're taught to listen to parents, teachers, police officers, and yes, doctors. This deference to authority is deeply rooted in our society, and one of the most powerful places it's taught is within our public school systems. The modern American public school system was heavily influenced and modeled after the Prussian education system in the 19th century, a model designed to create obedient workers and soldiers for the state. A man named Horace Mann, who became known as the father of the American public school system, visited Prussia in the 1840s, bringing back the concept of a universal, standardized, and state-funded system of compulsory education. Elements of this Prussian model, such as age-based grading, standardized curricula, and rows of desks, were adopted to instill uniformity, obedience, and efficiency, resembling a factory assembly line rather than a system of critical thought. This is not to say that structure of any kind is bad. Obviously not. Without structure, there's chaos. But too much structure will stifle creativity and innovation. And let's face it, the goal was clear, and it was not to produce critical thinkers. It was to do just the opposite, in fact. Think about it. Who do we implicitly trust with our health more than anyone else? Our doctors. And there are good reasons for why we would trust them. They must invest a significant amount of time to earn their university degree, and they have to endure years of on-the-job training. On the surface, to many, even the fact that they wear white coats and they speak in complex medical jargon elicits trust. All of these cues signal authority, and because of this, we tend to accept their diagnoses and treatment plans without much questioning, even when those plans turn out to be failures. This bias isn't a sign of weakness, it's deeply ingrained in our human traits. Psychologically, it offers a shortcut. Instead of having to do critical evaluation of every piece of information, we can offload that responsibility to someone who is perceived as an expert. But shortcuts, especially where our health is concerned, can sometimes lead us down a dead-end road to suffering. To truly understand the power and danger of authority bias, we have to look back at one of the most chilling and controversial psychological experiments ever conducted, the Milgram experiments. Stanley Milgram, a psychologist at Yale University, wanted to understand the human tendency to obey authority, even when that obedience clashed with their own personal conscience. This was in the early 1960s, a time when the world was still reeling from the atrocities of World War II, and people were asking, how could ordinary people commit such horrific acts? Milgram designed an experiment where participants were told they were assisting in a study on memory and learning. They were assigned the role of teacher, and another person who was actually a confederate of Milgram's was the learner. The teacher's job was to administer electric shocks to the learner every time they answered a question incorrectly. Kind of reminds me of the Ghostbusters thing.
Tell me what you think it is.
Is it a star?
It is a star.
Very good. That's great.
Okay. All right. Think hard. What is it?
Circle.
Close. But
Definitely wrong.
okay.
The shocks weren't real, but the teacher participants believed they were. They saw the learner strapped into a chair, heard their protests, their screams, and eventually eerie silence as the shock levels increased. Crucially, an experimenter in a white lab coat, an authority figure, stood over the teacher and whenever they hesitated or expressed concern, would calmly instruct them to continue with phrases like, "Please continue. The experiment requires that you continue," or "You have no other choice, you must continue." The results were shocking. Despite hearing cries of pain, despite believing that they were inflicting severe harm, a staggering 65% of participants administered the maximum, supposedly almost lethal 450-volt shock. They did it because an authority figure told them to. Their personal discomfort, their moral compass, was overridden by the perceived legitimacy and the instruction of an expert. Pretty wild, right? What these experiments actually demonstrated was just how powerful the authority bias is and how easily we abandon our own instincts, our own observations, and our own sense of harm when an authority figure assures us it's the right thing to do. We essentially just outsource our critical thinking. So how does this play out in our modern medical landscape? Think about it. Many of us enter the medical establishment seeking help, feeling unwell, and we're often desperate for a solution. A physician, an undisputed authority figure, prescribes a treatment. More often than not, medication, and perhaps occasionally general dietary guideline advice, like eat less and move more, or eat a balanced diet. Whatever the hell that means. We follow the instructions diligently. We take the pills, we try the balanced diet, the food pyramid, I guess, and then for many, we get failing results. We don't feel any better, and our symptoms may persist or often worsen. We often gain weight, and many develop additional medical conditions, especially as a result of the new medications. Yet, what is our default reaction? Do we question the treatments? Often no. We question ourselves. Maybe I'm not trying hard enough, or maybe I'm not disciplined enough, or maybe I need a higher dose. Maybe I need a different medication. And so we go back to the same authority figure, the doctor, and what often happens? They might increase the dosage, or prescribe a new drug, or suggest a different specialist. We enter a cycle, follow instructions, get failing results, return to authority, get more instructions, continue with failed treatment. What do they say about insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results? We have in many ways lost our ability to determine when we are being harmed. Our bodies may be screaming through persistent symptoms, new diagnoses, and a general decline in well-being, but because the expert assures us we're on the right path, we ignore our own internal alarm bells. Critical thinking in this realm has been lost. We've outsourced all of our agency. We've been conditioned to believe that the authority knows best, even when our own empirical evidence, how we feel in our own bodies, tells us a different story. And this, I believe, has paved the way for what I've termed the medication nation. Look around you. Truly look around. And what do you see? We are, as a society, increasingly obese. We're increasingly over-medicated. And despite all the advancements in modern medicine, we seem to be getting sicker. Chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune conditions, and debilitating fatigue, not to mention the mental health crisis, all of these conditions are skyrocketing. This is the medication nation. We live in a society where the default response to almost any symptom is a pharmaceutical intervention. The medical establishment, as it currently operates, seems largely focused on mitigating symptoms with the latest pharmaceuticals rather than fixing defective systems. Where is the root cause investigation? This focus on managing symptoms and fixing nothing is not only our problem, though. The loss of our ability to truly reason also extends to our deeply ingrained social practices. Think about something as simple and mundane as eating. We've been conditioned since childhood to believe that we must eat 3 square meals a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Thanks to some really sneaky and effective ad campaigns many years ago, many people actually still believe the tagline that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner come hell or high water. Everyone does it. It's a fundamental part of our culture. But biologically, this is ridiculous. Our ancestors weren't grazing on 3 consistent meals a day. They ate when food was available and when they were genuinely hungry. The concept of 3 meals a day as a rigid standard is a relatively modern invention, tied more to the Industrial Revolution and the schedule of factory workers than to a biological necessity. We become so accustomed to this routine that we eat because the clock says it's time to eat, not because our body is sending us a message or a hunger signal. We eat at 7 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m., regardless of whether we have experienced any kind of hunger signal or if we have expended enough energy to even need the fuel. We eat when celebrating. We eat when sad. We eat out of boredom, or worse, because of a food addiction. We thank the processed food for that. And the result of this constant influx of food, especially when we aren't truly hungry, is overeating and a cascade of metabolic dysfunction. Your body is meant to eat when it's hungry, period. Pushing food into a system that isn't ready for it and doesn't need it is never going to lead to good health. Overeating anything, even meat, especially when you're not hungry, is a surefire way to get sicker. And this brings me to my own personal journey. For years, I was a prime example of someone trapped in the failed medical system, a victim of authority bias and someone who had lost the ability to discern what was truly happening. I was 100 pounds overweight. My body was racked with pain from fibromyalgia and arthritis. I suffered from severe indigestion. It made every meal a gamble. Chronic fatigue and insomnia were my constant companions. Simply getting through the day felt like running a marathon in a lot of cases. And frankly, there was a whole host of other seemingly disconnected issues that were just my normal baseline. I did everything I was told. I tried every diet you can think of. I went the traditional mainstream route of healthy eating focusing on whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. I tried being a vegetarian, then vegan, and convinced that plants held the key to health, probably. I experimented with paleo and then ketogenic diets, hoping to find relief. I sought advice from various professionals, followed their guidance, and took the prescribed medications. And you know what? All of these attempts were failures. While some diets like keto offered some benefits like weight loss, the medical conditions persisted. And in the end, I even gained back a lot of the weight I had lost originally. At that point, I felt utterly defeated. I was told that these conditions are chronic, I'll likely have them for the rest of my life, and I just need to manage my symptoms with more drugs. Then, out of sheer desperation, I stumbled upon the carnivore diet, and everything changed. Initially, the concept sounded extreme, even dangerous. It flew in the face of everything I had ever been taught about nutrition. No vegetables, only meat? That's insane, my authority bias was screaming at me. But something inside of me, a tiny spark of critical thinking that had not been completely extinguished, whispered, what if? I'd tried everything else. I was already sick. What did I have to lose? And so, cautiously, I embarked on an elimination diet solely of animal products, meat, salt, and water at first. And the results? They weren't just good, they were miraculous. The most shocking thing I learned was how much my body had been struggling with constant feeding. Once I started eating incredibly nutrient-dense animal products, I noticed something profound. I never got hungry 3 times a day. My body, finally getting the nutrients that it needed, would signal genuine hunger. In most cases, only once a day. I now typically eat only 1 meal a day when my body truly demands it, and I feel so much better. There's no getting sleepy at work after lunch because there is no lunch. Occasionally, I'll feel hungry twice daily, but it isn't that often. This has led to my productivity going through the roof. I am amazed at what I can get accomplished now that my day is not constantly interrupted by scheduled meals. I have to either prepare and eat or just eat. I don't even need them. Within weeks, I started shedding the excess weight. The chronic pain from fibromyalgia and arthritis began to subside. My severe indigestion, which had plagued me for years, vanished completely. The debilitating fatigue lifted, and I felt a sustained energy that I hadn't experienced in decades. My mood stabilized. Every single medical condition I had been told was chronic and manageable was beginning to reverse. I lost over 100 pounds. The narcotic medication that I took for 15 years, I stopped taking that after about 2 months in Carnivore, along with all other medications. You heard me right. I take no medications. I am free from pain now. I have abundant energy. I sleep better. I haven't had a cold or illness in 3 years, where in the past I got sick 2 or 3 times a year. I feel like a completely different person. This wasn't a fluke. This wasn't willpower. This was my body finally getting the nourishment it needed and removing the things that were harming it. This was my body given a chance to heal, demonstrating its incredible inherent wisdom, something I had ignored for so long because I was too busy listening to external authorities. So I told you my journey not as a prescription of what you should do specifically for your own health. It is what worked for me, though. But it does serve as an example of what can happen when you actually begin to question the narratives and you challenge the authorities. And most importantly, you listen to your own body. We are not powerless. We are not just victims of our genes or circumstances. Our bodies have an incredible capacity for healing, given the right environment and the proper nutrients. The message I want to leave you with today is this. Don't outsource your health. Don't let authority bias silence your intuition. If something isn't working, if you're getting sicker, if you're accumulating more and more diagnoses and medications, then it's time to stop and critically assess. I always say, if you need to go full Karen, by all means, do it. If you get failed medical advice over and over again, speak up. Ask to see the manager and get a refund.
Oh, but I guess that's just Karen being Karen again, huh? Yeah.
I mean, the odds are it's not ever going to happen, but at least, for God's sakes, go to another provider if the one that you have is currently doing nothing but expanding your suffering. Seek knowledge. Experiment with foods responsibly and carefully. Listen to your body's signals, not just the loudest voice in the room or the most popular societal practice. This isn't about rejecting all medical advice. It's about participating in your own health journey, asking the why, and finding what truly works for you. Demand that any healthcare provider you employ shows you why your body doesn't work the way it's supposed to, with the receipts. And remember, you're paying them, not the other way around. The days of doctor worship need to come to an end, and you know exactly what I mean when I say that. The whole, just do what I say because you're merely a stupid peasant and I am not required to explain myself to you. No more of that. And I will add, not all physicians are that asinine, but it seems these days, unfortunately, the majority of them are. My transformation within the carnivore diet and learning to eat only when I was hungry showed me that healing is possible, even when you've been told that it's not. It taught me the profound power of self-experimentation and learning to listen to my body's empirical evidence over perceived authority. So I encourage you, really think about what we've been talking about here. Question yourself, the choices you're making, and why you're making them. I strongly believe that these difficult psychological concepts aren't talked about enough in the nutrition space. I think it's critical to dig into the concepts like socially acceptable practices surrounding food, the real problems with food addiction and our food supply, and more. Reclaim your critical thinking, reclaim your health autonomy, and start asking the uncomfortable questions. Your well-being depends on it. Thanks for watching, and please share your thoughts in the comments section below. What has your experience been with authority bias in healthcare? And have you found solutions that challenge conventional wisdom? I'd love to hear all of your stories. And if you enjoyed this video, if you could give me a like, I would really appreciate it. It helps the channel a lot. And if you want to subscribe, please do. And hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on future content. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.